We appreciate you joining our webinar today on feature-based CAD conversion services. Today's presenter is Ben Baker. Ben, I'll turn things over to you.
Awesome, thanks Christian, and thank you everyone for joining. I hope you're all doing well and are surviving working from home. Yeah, again, thanks for joining us today. So just to go over a little bit about who I am and what I do at ITI. So I work at the UK ITI offices, which are in Cambridge, and there I specialize in feature-based conversion migration. So the software Proficiency, which we're going to be going over today. I've been doing this for several years, and my role is kind of a first point of contact and you know, business contact moving forwards with the projects. So let's dive right into it. So as Christian mentioned, what we're going to be doing today is going over our feature-based CAD conversion software, Proficiency, and specifically the services that we offer around this for CAD migration and consolidation onto a different format. So let's go over the agenda for today. So we've learned over many projects doing this for many years what kind of is important to convey to the potential customer or client before we do a conversion. One of these is, I think it's quite useful to go over the trends that drive CAD conversion, as well as any project essentials that we need to know from you, or you know, you might need to know from us before we start with the project. Of course, an understanding of what the feature-based conversion technology does under the hood is useful. I mean, as we are concentrating on services, I don't think you guys need to know exactly how it works, but I think it helps to have an appreciation of what it does. Then we're going to go over our services. So we have several different service levels, which we could go over today. I'll explain to you what they are and you know, and how they fit in with different customer requirements. Of course, with most CAD, well, with a lot of CAD conversions, you're going to have a PLM element to that. That could be a migration or some kind of PLM aspect, and this does add extra complexity to the project. But at ITI, we have experience with this, and we can help you through that. And I will be going over a few different scenarios today to give you an idea of how we do that. And we also do have 3 case studies, which are either ongoing or successful projects with our Proficiency software. So I think this is useful to give you an idea of the kind of scale of projects and range of different businesses and manufacturers we work with. Gives you an appreciation of timescales as well in the real world. We're going to show you how, if you are interested in engaging us with services, how to do so and what the business process looks like. And as Christian said, of course, we'll have a question and answer at the end. So if you do have any questions, feel free to put them in whenever you can, but we'll save them for the end in a dedicated Q&A session. So generally speaking, several trends drive CAD conversion in the market at the moment. The first of these is when a company is looking to perform a global PLM migration. So this could be driven by corporate standardization. Say they've got different departments and they're running different PLM tools, and there is a drive within the company to standardize on one PLM system. And therefore, you might be interested in moving that CAD data into the new PLM system and maybe standardizing on that same company's CAD system. So, for example, you know, Teamcenter, SolidWorks, or Autodesk Inventor and Vault. So this is quite a common trend that we see for CAD conversion. And similarly, but with CAD harmonization. So you could have, again, different departments running different CAD formats. This could be causing some communication and some design issues if you do need to do a kind of a multi-department project. So it can benefit you know, the entire organization to standardize onto a single CAD format. I would say this is probably the most common project requirement that we see here at ITI. And then this could be wrapped up into a corporate acquisition. So we are seeing a lot of these, the current climate, you know, company A buys company B. They're using a different CAD tool, and therefore they need to move that CAD data into their standardized format in order for their engineers to get some benefit from that design intellect. Again, very common requirement that we run into. And we do also see, kind of at a smaller scale, I guess, you know, your company can purchase design intellect from a supplier or a third party, which again is in a different format. and you might need to, move that data into your own corporate format of CAD data. Okay, so what commonly and what in most projects, what do we see that our customers require? So, of course, for every project, the reason that you're looking to do some feature-based CAD conversion is you want to reuse that data. So you want that feature content, you want it to be parametric, you want it to be modifiable, so you can easily just run into the design process without any need to do any other kind of manual remastering. And of course, what this does is it preserves that design investment that was made when you or someone else designed in that legacy system. A lot of money has been put into doing this design, so you need to make sure that you retain that and retain that IP. So preserving your intellectual property is a key aspect for most of our customers. During this process, you're going to need to define what data needs to be converted with features. I'm going to go over this in a bit more detail later on, but it's often the case, especially in a large-scale legacy conversion, that you might not actually require to be redesigning all of your CAD data, and it can make sense from a cost and timescale point of view to find out what those areas are, what that data is, and to have that ready to go for the conversion. And leading into that, you need to define which methods work best for your CAD data. So as I say, you might have a lot of your data, of course, which you need to do feature-based conversion on, but there could be another data set which might have special requirements, or maybe is just going to be archival that you can run a different kind of conversion on, and we can support you with that. So with feature-based conversion, it's never going to be perfect. There's always going to be functionality and technological gaps in your conversion, and this is because every company designs uses different design standards and different design techniques. And although we do support the vast majority of these, it can be the case that we find something in particular about your data, about some of your data, isn't currently covered in the software. Now, what we can do here is we can find out what that is, and we might be able to add it to the software for you, or it could be something that's kind of a functionality gap which we can't close, and we'll make sure to find that for you in the pre kind of the pre-service area, so we can show you that. We're always very upfront with what we expect to see in the conversion. So there's always going to be some kind of post-conversion processing, be that validation or whatever your company has specifically. So we will work with you in determining the how long that's going to take, and help you with running that validation after the conversion. As I mentioned before, a lot of these conversions are going to require some kind of PLM requirement. Anyone on the call who is familiar with PLM will understand that this is often very painful, but at ITI we have a lot of experience with this, so we will support you and help you through those PLM requirements as needed. And naturally, of course, we're gonna want to talk about the project timeline you have, which wraps into the cost of conversion. Yeah. So we typically see three common conversion methodologies for moving CAD data from one place to another. The most simple of which would be the BREP conversion, or the dumb solid conversion. So this is where you just either export a step file or a native file from your legacy data and simply just import that into your new CAD system. Of course, this is very fast, very economical. Most CAD systems can do this quite easily. However, you're going to lose all of that parametric data, all of that design intellect is going to be lost. So if you do need to redesign with this model, you're going to have to remaster it from scratch. You're going to have to rebuild that model to make it fully parametric again. So you're not going to be able to reuse that data in a new system. However, this can be the case. This can be kind of what you want if it's just going to be archival and you're not going to be using that data downstream. And then we have manual remastering. So this is where you can either internally or send it off to a third-party company, and they simply open up that model in your old CAD system, open up a session in your new CAD system, and manually recreate that model based off the old model. So this will, if it's done correctly, this will preserve your data intelligence. you'll have that design reuse capability in the new software. However, because it's a human sitting there and doing this by hand, it's going to be a very slow process. It's going to be expensive in time frame as well as money. And you're also going to have issues with model quality control, especially if it's gone off to a third party. When you get those models back, you're going to have to take the time to go through and validate that by hand, which can often lead to time frames being expanded quite drastically. So feature-based conversion, and more specifically automated feature-based conversion, is what we offer here with Proficiency. So this is similar to manual remastering, apart from it's automated. So the software will automatically map that data into the new CAD system. Because it's automated, it can run 24/7 in the backgrounds in batches. This is economical in both time and resources versus the manual process. It's a much shorter time period, and of course you get that crucial preservation of model intelligence. Of course, there are some cons to this, as I mentioned before. Sometimes there might be areas of the conversion which cannot be supported by the fully automatic process, and we're going to go into an example of this a bit later on. And there can be issues with API incompatibility, which again I'll cover a bit later on. But overall, the feature-based conversion gives you a much faster and stronger result.
Ben, are we ready for our first poll?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. If you are consolidating, what percentage of your data do you plan to fully convert featured, not BREV? 100%, up to 75, up to 50, up to 25, or none? If you guys could weigh in quickly, we'll leave it up for a few seconds for everyone to get their answers in. We'll give you just a few more seconds. If you haven't answered yet, please do so quickly. All right, so we're going to go ahead and pull it back. And it looks like we have up to 75 is 50% and up to 25 is 50%.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting to hear. So, it's good to hear that people aren't looking for a 100%. As I've mentioned before, that can be quite difficult to achieve. So yeah, I would say that's pretty common. Excellent. So what we'll do then is we'll move on to the project conversion methods, different ways to convert your data. As I mentioned before, there's three ways that you can do this. So the BREP conversion I did mention before is a very fast and easy way to convert your data. However, you're not getting that design intellect, but you might have some archival data that isn't going to be needed, or is a very low chance of being needed for reuse. So we can just simply run that through very quickly as a BREP conversion. And then, of course, you have the feature-based automated conversion, which will give you that design reuse, which I would expect the bulk of the data to be. And then you might have a few special cases. So these might be not ideally supported by the automated conversion because they have specific special requirements. So these might require a little bit of remastering after the conversion because they are special cases. And this all rolls into a single project, and we tend to see a little bit of each of these. Well, mostly the feature based, but a little bit of the other two in a large conversion. Yeah. So let's delve a little bit into how the technology works. As I said before, because you're interested in services, you don't need to know exactly how the software works, but I think it helps to have a little bit of appreciation of what it's doing under the hood. So Proficiency will require a license of each of the CAD tools, so the legacy CAD tool, in this case SolidWorks, and the CAD tool that you're moving to, in this case Creo. So Proficiency sits in the middle and extracts and maps these features via their API from the legacy CAD data into Proficiency, which acts as a neutral system. And through function calls, we will rebuild the model automatically in the new system. So what it will do, it will find a specific feature, say a protrusion or a round within the source CAD. It will work out what the counterpart is for that in the new system, and it will map those features directly into the target CAD system, as you can see here. So this, as I mentioned before, this is done via the API, accessing the API of the systems. Proficiency has the code there to work out which feature should be in the new CAD system. So let's go over an example conversion process. So keeping that example going, you've got a SolidWorks fully parametric model, and you want to convert that over to Creo. So with the automated conversion, we typically see over 90% of the features coming across fully parametrically ready to go. However, you might have a minor percentage of these features which are either out of the tolerances which we've set within Proficiency, and Proficiency will be very conservative when it comes to altering the geometry. So if it sees that converting a feature will alter the geometry in any way, it won't do it, and it will put in a flag and an orphan in there, which we can then use to open up and see, okay, let's see what's happened here. Why hasn't it converted? And there could be a case of relaxing the tolerances, or finding some kind of manual remastering case to bring that up to a fully parametric model. So what you would see is after the conversion process with that over 90% parametric feature content, if you do require that to be up to 100%, you would do that manual completion to find that 100% parametric feature content model. And as I'll go over in a second, we have the different levels of services. With silver services, the customer would do this, and there is also an option to engage ITI to do this manual completion for you. Yeah.
Ben, are we ready for our next poll?
Let's do it.
All right. So if you have a project with a conversion requirement, what is the target CAD format you will be converting to? Feel free to weigh in quickly. We'll give you just a few more seconds. All right, so we're going to go ahead and close the poll. And it looks like 33% said Creo and 67% said Inventor.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, well, I think that as this slide shows, luckily we do support both of those formats that were mentioned, as well as any of the other, I guess, big five, as you say. So one thing to note here is we see Solid Edge we can use as a source, but not as a target, and this is generally due to demand. So the more times we run a pathway, the better the software gets at doing that, because we see more features which we add to the software. But in any case, all of the formats that you see here are supported with Proficiency. And yeah, these are the projects we typically run. So now I'd like to talk about the different service levels that we offer from ITI. So these range from bronze to platinum. Bronze service, this is, as I mentioned before, the BREP conversion. So you're just looking to move from one CAD format to the other, and you're not interested in keeping any of your parametric data. We can run this very, very quickly and easily for you, and we do have some customers that want that. Silver services tends to be one of our most popular service levels. So what this will do is for the 3D conversion and the 2D conversion, we'll run an automated feature-based conversion. and we will then deliver the customer an as-is conversion result. So what this means is the software runs through the data, and ITI doesn't touch those results after the automated conversion. Those are simply delivered to the customer, and then the customer can do what they wish with them. Moving on to gold services, so what this offers is exactly the same as silver services. However, with the 3D data, we will include completion services on this. So this will be agreed beforehand with discussion and technical assessment by the customer in ITI. We will agree on a statement of work as to the specifications of the 3D completion on the 3D models, and this will be completed by ITI and then delivered to the customer. Again, the 2D data is converted as is and is not worked on by ITI after the conversion. Platinum services goes a step further here. So in this case, as well as the 3D models being completed as per agreed beforehand, we can also do this with 2D models. I would say that this is rarely needed, the platinum services, as most customers would have a good understanding of what level of completion they need to do themselves. However, if you do have a requirement for 100% parametric models and drawings, the option does exist. However, as I'm sure you've worked out by now, these get more expensive as they go down. So it really is useful for the customer to understand which models would need that done from a cost and time frame point of view. So let's see how a project would pan out then. So for a bronze level service, what would happen is you would send ITI an import folder with that legacy CAD data in it, in a staging folder. ITI then runs a pre-conversion analysis, what we call an audit, on this data. And what this does is gives us a good idea of how the conversion will go, and we can find any bottlenecks or issues before we run the conversion. We will then run the conversion. In this case, because it's bronze services, this is just in BREP mode. We also have a validation software called CAD IQ, which actually compares the source and the target CAD model, and it will check for any deviations from the geometry, which is very useful, obviously. And then we will deliver a conversion folder back to the customer to be processed however they wish. And silver services, very similar beginning. So the conversion import folder is delivered to ITI. We run an analysis. We find out where we're likely to see any issues and sort them before the conversion. This time, the software is in the feature mode. So this is processing the features and the parameters along with the geometry. This again is validated with CAD IQ and delivered to the customer via a conversion export folder. Gold, again, very similar, but this time the only difference being there is a post-conversion phase, which where ITI would do some manual completion on the 3D data as per the statement of work agreed beforehand. And again, after this is done, that data is validated before being sent back to the customer via an export folder. Platinum services, as I'm sure you're aware by now, is very similar. So the data is given to us, and this time we run manual completion on the 3D and 2D data as per agreed upon beforehand in the statement of work. This data is of course then validated as in every case and given back to the customer via an export folder. So we actually do have a relatively new service level, which we call diamond services, which is a bit different from the rest of them. And this is typically useful for a customer that has a very large amount of data in a very short time frame. So in this case, what the customer will do is will actually acquire the software from ITI and then engage ITI for services. So we will run the project via this software, which is purchased by the customer, and this can be hosted either at the customer site or within ITI. And the benefit of this is because you have the software is active, we can run as many instances as we like of this software. So you could have 6, 9 different conversions happening at the same time. And as I said, this is very beneficial for a project which is on a very tight time frame. So it works for the customer. You wouldn't see much difference in the service levels, but it just allows us to be a lot faster in the conversion process. Okay, so as well as the kind of pure conversion, we have built a few special functionality into the software. So areas which often need support would be file naming or renaming. So in the conversion process, the new PLM software or pathway you're using later might have a different part naming standards, and in order to seamlessly slot those models into the new PLM system, you might need to do some automated renaming, and we can do that for you. Attribute mapping can be added as well. So what we would ask is you give us a mapping table, and we can use this within the conversion to map these attributes as required. And finally, we also offer customer-specific environment support. So this can be a variety of things, but a good example would be drawing templates. So I'm sure you have some drawing templates which you would like us to use. So we can load those into the software beforehand, and then every drawing that you get will be on that standardized template that your company uses. Okay, so let's move on to the actual conversion and different scenarios involving PLM migration as well. So this will give you an idea of how a project would look. So in this example, the first example, we have no PLM system change, which is good news for the company, as I'm sure any PLM guys would know. This is the one of the easiest cases. So in this case, we have SolidWorks data that is managed by Teamcenter. This SolidWorks data is going to be converted into NX and then re-imported back into Teamcenter. So this legacy SolidWorks data will be exported into a file conversion folder. This will be sent to ITI, this conversion staging folder. We would download that data and load it into Proficiency. This data will then be run through the software and converted from SolidWorks to NX. The converted data will then be loaded into an import staging folder, which will be sent back to the customer for import into Teamcenter. So in this case, we have no PLM change. So this is what the project would look like. The second case we have is with a PLM system change. So in this case, we have a single mass migration. So the customer is looking to a lump of data, simply convert that into the new CAD system, and then that will be imported into a different PLM system. In this case, we're going from Windchill to Autodesk Vault. So again, very similar start of the process. So the data is exported from Creo into a staging folder. ITI would download that folder, run it through Proficiency, and in this case is converted from Creo to Inventor. The converted data will then be loaded into an import staging folder, which is sent across to the customer for import into Vault. Now it's important to note here that this slide makes it look very easy. This PLM migration, of course, this is not the case. There can be lots of complications with a process like this. So we would often suggest using a PLM partner of some kind, and ITI does offer those services as well. So a good PLM partner will know how to support you with this conversion.
Ben, are we ready for our third poll?
Yep, let's go for it.
All right. Is your CAD conversion project a part of a PLM migration project? Either yes or no. We'll give you a few more seconds if you guys could weigh in pretty quickly. All right, we're going to go ahead and close the poll. It looks like it was 50% yes and 50% no.
Excellent, right down the middle. Yeah, good to hear. Anyone who doesn't have a PLM migration, congratulations. Process will probably be a lot faster for you, but of course, we can support this PLM migration if need be. I do have one final kind of scenario for you, which would be very similar to the PLM migration, but in this case, you might have an on-demand requirement. So you've got multiple data sets which you need to be converted at different times. So this can be the case as if you're working in an active design environment. So you're moving from, in this case, Creo to Inventor, but you can't shut down design whilst this conversion is happening. So what we would do is we would run through the first conversion through the same process as I mentioned before, and this would be decided by you guys in consultation with us what to do first, and then we would do several jobs afterwards as that data is able to be converted. And then crucially after this, there might have been some data that whilst we were converting it, it's actually been changed. So we would do what we call a delta conversion, where we take that data that has been modified whilst the conversion was taking place, and we run it through the system again, maybe over a long weekend ideally, or over a short period of time. And then that way we can have all the data into the new system, whilst taking into account the modifications that have happened during the project. Okay. So what I would like to do now is just go over 3 case studies that we have from our active customers or past customers to give you an idea of the kind of projects that we run into. So of course these are going to have to be generalized because we have an obligation to our clients and ourselves of NDAs and confidentiality. So these customer names and things like that have been taken out. So in this case, we have an industrial machinery company located in Germany. Their project requirements was they actually purchased some equipment designs from a third party. This customer was using Inventor, but they actually acquired SolidWorks data, which obviously needed to be moved over to Inventor for them to use downstream. So yeah, they were using SolidWorks and they were looking to move into Inventor. Luckily, their PLM system, their data was file-based, and they were then moving that into Vaults, which they already had set up in their company. In this case, we're looking about 6,000 drawings, 4,000 parts, about 1,500 assemblies, and they approached ITI for gold level conversion services. So this is where we do some manual completion, where we do manual completion on the 3D model. They actually came back for three separate projects during 2019, and these were executed as 3 separate entities. I think this is a good time to mention that we actually have a kind of initiative with Autodesk called Go to Inventor, which is based on the same software that Proficiency, which I've been talking about today. But this initiative is, with Autodesk, is called Go to Inventor, and that's what we used here, and what we would use for any conversion into Inventor. So in this second case, we have a material handling systems company, conveyors, packaging equipment, things like that. So they're headquartered in the USA. However, they actually had several global sites. So this was a multi-site, multi-year project, quite a large project. And they also had a PLM migration requirement. So they were moving from Inventor, SolidWorks, and CATIA into NX. So there were multiple PLM systems involved, as well as file-based CAD data, and they're moving that into Teamcenter. As you can appreciate, this was quite a complex project with a relatively large amount of CAD objects, over 100,000 unique CAD objects. So they used a variety of our offerings here because of the complex nature of the engagement here. This made sense for them. So they used our services, but they also actually via the Diamond services they hosted some software, the Proficiency software in house. So this would be used for any on-demand conversions they had during the process. And we also mirrored that installation at ITI and used that to run the bulk of the data through with Gold conversion services. So this was executed over 6 locations in a 3-year period due to the amount of data they had and the variety of different designs they were using. And the customer actually did, in this case, partner with ITI's PLM system wing, if you like. So we have a specialist team who do PLM migrations, and that's kind of their business model there. So we can liaise with them as needed on projects such as this. So the final case study I have for you here. So these were a high precision design engineering company. They were based in Switzerland, and they had a requirement for CAD harmonization. So they were looking to standardize onto Inventor and Vault from legacy CAD data they had in SolidWorks. A fairly typical case for us. In this case, their PLM system, well, they didn't have one. It was file based, and they're moving into their existing PLM, which was Vault. So they had a large amount of data here, like roughly 50,000 objects. So an object is what we would call an assembly, a part, or a drawing. We would class these as one object each, and that's typically how we work out how large the conversion is. In this case, again, they went for Diamond services, so customer hosted the software installation, and they had multiple agents going at the same time, and this allowed the conversion to be done in as little as 6 weeks, whilst the customer's working on that data. So we executed a delta conversion afterwards on any of that data which had been modified during the initial conversion. And this was actually done over a long weekend. So the engineers left on a Friday or a Thursday, and they came back, and it was all in Vault, all in Inventor, ready to be used again. Yeah. So I just wanted to go over finally in the last section here how to get started with our conversion services. If it is something that you're interested in pursuing, what would it look like? So in a typical project, first thing we need to know is your general project requirements. This is things like how much data do you have, where you're going to and from, is there a PLM migration involved, what's your timeline, things like this. And we would actually ask you for a sample data set to do a no-cost test conversion. So this is typically around 50 megabytes. And what we would do is we would run that through our software, and we would present to you the results of that. So you can see, we'd ask that to be a representative kind of offering of the kind of CAD data you have. And this will give you a very good idea of what the full conversion would look like and how successful it would be. And we'll present an assessment and analysis of that, and then use that to determine with consulting yourselves on the correct service level for your particular project, and we will determine the next steps needed for your specific requirements. So if you're running a large project, or if you're using Platinum services, we often would suggest running a proof of concept. So what this would be is basically a small version of the full conversion. So we'd ask you for up to 250 CAD objects. We would run a full feature-based conversion on this data set, and we would use that time and this proof of concept to configure and optimize our technology, so we can maximize the results for you for the full conversion. And we can often we can find areas of enhancement or maybe a bit of development that needs to be done in order to maximize that conversion if need be. And of course, you will get quite detailed reports on that test data set, the assessment of it, what our engineers and development thought of it, and you can of course review that data, load it into your new system, and test it yourselves. And of course, we would offer any recommendations we have for the full project based on anything we found during that POC. Okay, so why should you choose CAD conversion services offered by ITI? So CAD conversion, as you hopefully appreciate now, is quite a complex endeavor. Projects vary quite wildly, and as we've been doing it for many years, it's best to leave it to us. We're the experts. You know, we know what we're doing. We've done thousands of these projects, processed millions of objects, and we have the expertise to work through the project in a quick and easy fashion. You don't need to become an expert at feature-based CAD conversion. You know, this is something that you're likely to do one project, you know, and then you have that data there. You might need to do it again later on, but it's not something that you need to devote your resources to. You don't need to involve your IT department at all installing and implementing and training for this product. You don't need to run any admin of it because this is all run by ITI. And of course, no staffing costs would need to be factored in because ITI would run that conversion for you. There can be cases where you know, you're running quite a small conversion, and the software itself tends to be, you know, it's not a cheap thing to get in house. So this would be unjustifiable unless you use the services where we can charge per object, and therefore, you know, work into a more cost-effective solution. So we would, as I mentioned before, we would agree on a timeline before the conversion, and based on that, we can give you a very accurate timeline and project timeline to meet your expectations in that way. Services, as we're able to run multiple sessions of the software, enable us to do that very easily. And simply, we can give you a good, you know, a fixed quotation for that. We can say, you know, this is how much it's going to cost to do this conversion, and you can, you know, that's going to help a lot with project management and with management approval, and seeing that all beforehand, as well as the time frame, can help in the decision making process. Of course, this leads to a shorter project timeline than if you were to do it yourself, because you'd have to learn how to use the software and get it implemented and things like that. And this all leads to a cost-effective solution. Fantastic. Yeah, so that's all I wanted to cover today. I'll happily open up the floor. I know we have a few minutes left. Anyone who has any questions, or if they've already been submitted, please take the time to do it now.
So it looks like we have a few minutes for a couple questions. I do have a couple here. Do you offer software licensing as well?
Yes, so we do. It typically depends on the project as to whether it's worthwhile acquiring the software. I mean, especially if you're going to have a lot of conversions happening quite regularly, then it would make sense to, you know, purchase the software. And we do offer term licensing, perpetual licensing, much like a CAD system kind of model. We can be quite flexible with that. So we do offer that, and we would consult with you, and through your budget requirements, which we would get from you straight away, we would be able to tell you, you know, which would be the best option for you.
Awesome. Looks like we have time for a few more questions, so feel free to drop those in the questions window. Here's another one. What is a typical success rate of a conversion?
That's a good question. Of course, it can vary between CAD tools. We typically aim for over 95%, and the software is vastly improved from what it was. And I would say typically 95%. We do see higher than that. We would never, you know, say that you're going to get 100% all the time, but we're seeing very good results, especially with common pathways. Yeah.
All right, it looks like we have one more question. Have you dealt with plant design software data conversion?
Plant design software. So that's a good question. So that wouldn't be the ones I mentioned before. So that's typically like Aviva and software like that. So Proficiency doesn't actually support that at the moment. We do actually have a separate tool called CADfix, which is used for plant design simplification and data transfer. So we can do, you know, let's say you have a SolidWorks model, we can simplify that or change that and export that as a step model for import into Aviva, but that would lose the design intelligence. I mean, if that's something you were interested in, we can I'd happily send you some more details on that.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Ben, again for the presentation. It was wonderful. Thank you all for joining us this morning, this evening, this afternoon, wherever you are. We appreciate you joining us. This webinar, I will be sending out a link for you to rewatch it here shortly. If you have any questions, please contact us at info@iti-global.com, and I'll point you in the right direction. Thank you all again for your time, and we'll connect with you shortly. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.